Okay. And now we will wait for folks to trickle in.
Phones off, BTW.
Now my mom's gonna be here.
Hi, everyone. We'll get started in just a minute. I'm just going to wait 30 seconds while people trickle in. All right, I'll go ahead and get us started. Hi, thanks for joining us. We are excited to work with you on the last Alumni Series for the semester. So as many of you know, we've been working on this series throughout the semester. We've done it bi-monthly, and it's really just an opportunity for us to invite alum from Cuesta to come back with us and share about their work and how their practices have emerged and changed since their time here. I'm Emma Saperstein. I'm the gallery coordinator at the Harold J. Miossi Art Gallery at Cuesta College. I want to acknowledge before we get started that our gallery rests on traditional lands of the coastal band of the Chumash Nation, including the Abaspeño, members of the Chumash and language family, and other native tribes who made their homes along the west coast of California. You can feel free to acknowledge the land of where you are in the chat if you so desire. This event today will be 45-ish minutes. We might end early. We might go over depending on the conversation. Each artist will present their work for 5 to 10 minutes, share about their journey post-Cuesta and what they're up to now. And then Brittany and I will return and moderate the Q&A and have a little discussion. As I mentioned, we'll try to keep it to 45 minutes, but if there are lots of questions, we can go further as needed. Our first artist who's going to be sharing today is Alonso. Alonso is a Cuesta alum who is a multimedia artist with a focus on digital photography and alternative analog photograph processing. He and I have gotten to know each other rather well because he worked with me in the gallery and was really active in a few different major projects that the gallery hosted since my time. So I will invite Brittany and Isabelle to turn off their videos and their mics, and I'll give the floor to Alonso.
Hello, one and all. Thank you for being here. Emma, could you make me host?
Oh, yes. Sorry. One moment. Okay. You should be good to go.
Yep. So my practice is, the way I approach my art is in 3 different ways. One's very conceptualized, thought out. I write down in notebooks and work the material from there. Another way is I just go for it. I experiment. I just play with it essentially. Here in this Cyanotype, it's 11 by 14, created in 2018 through, I believe it was my alternative processing class. Cyanotype was laid down first, and then I wanted to create a hard border. When you're laying down the Cyanotype developer, you got to lay it down with a paintbrush. So as you can see, I have painterly strokes all around the edges, but I taped off the edges to give me a nice, crisp, clean line. It took me a little bit to get to this point, but it was all about working it and playing with it and just being patient with it. Here I have another Cyanotype, working with those painterly strokes again, really just experimenting with it. It's a 8 by 10 piece. This is an emotion lift, another piece that came out of the alternative processing class. I really wish I would have done more of these because back then it was much cheaper to get this film. Now this film is going for like $70, so it's very expensive to do this process. But I really like how these came out, and working with this material. Another emotion lift. This was through the lighting class, we had to do a kind of a replicate an ad. I chose these spray cans. So this is studio work in digital now that we're getting into. Another studio shot created there at Cuesta College through the lighting class. I took the techniques that I gained through that class and really just started implementing it through my work. This is a personal project. It wasn't for a class assignment or anything, but it was something for me to put in my portfolio that I was trying to really build up at the time with my new skills. Another lighting class, personal project. I was just trying to really build that portfolio because I knew the next step for me was, submitting portfolios to colleges for acceptance. This piece, one of my favorite pieces I've made. This is an installation back in 2017. We had a summer residency with the Industry of the Ordinary, which is a group or a pair of fine blokes from out Chicago, which is a conceptual and performative art group or art pair. And this piece was really an altar to myself. It was in a sense kind of the passing of the worker Alonso, the truck driver Alonso, and the rebirth or the birth of Alonso the artist. For many years, I was in and out of school, pursuing my art in and out, but I was divided and torn between, making that 9-to-5 career job and becoming an artist. And then 2013, I had a near-death experience, which really just, honed me in and focused me on achieving my art degree, but also becoming a more focused artist. This piece contains scrap tires, blown tires from the side of the road. I took a trip to Washington during this time, and on my way back, I collected some of these straps from the side of the road from blown trucks, big rigs. Some were also collected there on the 101 near San Luis Obispo. The projection is me laying there. It's a video. It's a small video, a couple seconds of clips, but you could see me kind of move and not move. So it kind of gave the illusion: is this dead? Is this person dead, or is he alive? And that's what I wanted the viewer to kind of question in their mind what was going on with this person, laid to rest. In front there, at the bottom of this of the back wall, there's a CB radio attached to a car battery, which just kind of gave the room a whole like white noise. It filled it with white noise, and that's what I wanted. Due to, when you're truck driving, your only friends are within how far your radio reaches, which is usually a mile or two. So that's the only conversation you have unless you're talking on the phone or anything like that. But that's where a lot of the camaraderie comes in with truck drivers. To my next piece. My next piece is another one of my favorites, created in sculpture, I believe. This is a bronze piece. And here in the center is where the first conceptualization started. This is a Mexica Aztec symbol. And then from there, this was an assignment. From there, we were told to create something out of that first conceptualization that is either human, animal, or mechanical. And this is what I've came up with. Just kind of bent it out of shape, added a little scorpion tail to say. Some more digital art. I really enjoyed how here the color was playing with each other, almost a complementary color aspect. Here, I really enjoyed how the directional lines just kind of pull you from the Lincoln symbol all the way towards the back and out of focus. Digital as well. This piece was a personal project. It was done long exposure with a neutral density filter to give the waves a silky, smooth effect. This photo almost didn't happen. Me and some friends were headed to shoot the ship, and typical coastal weather, San Luis. It was nice and sunny, but nice. Once you get to the coast, it was just foggy. Once we got close to Cayucas, we almost called it off and walked back because the fog was so thick. We didn't think we could get we couldn't capture anything. But luckily we pushed through, looked at the site, and this wonderful photo came up. This is another personal project, on location portrait. I'm using a flash here. And that wraps it up. Thank you all for coming. And
Can you see me?
yes.
Am I visible?
Yes.
Thank you, Alonso. It's great to see all that work. And on the Q&A, hopefully we can talk a little bit more about what you're up to now. And yeah, it's great. It's great to see all the work and the different mediums that you've experimented a lot with. So I'm going to invite Isabelle to rejoin us to share about her work, and then we'll have a Q&A. So Isabelle, if you want to turn on your video. Hi.
Hi.
Love the studio shot. Isabelle Olivia is a multidisciplinary artist living and working in San Luis Obispo. She's a painter, maker, illustrator, and author interested in surreal animals and abstract landscapes. Isabelle graduated from Cuesta College in 2019 and is currently completing a BFA in illustration at the Rocky Mountain College of Art and Design. Isabelle also worked in the gallery with me for many years. If you have ever seen our Instagram, she basically built it from the ground up because that is not my skill set, and was fabulous to work alongside for so much time. So I'm gonna have the rest of us turn off our videos and Isabelle take it away. Love to hear.
All right. Still new to Zoom, Emma. I just want to make sure. Can you see my website on the share screen?
Yeah, it looks great.
Okay, great. So I'm just going to leave up my homepage real quick and before I go over that octopus. So hi, my name is Isabelle Olivia. I am a fine artist / illustrator in San Luis Obispo. Thank you again, Emma, for the introduction. I'm pursuing two careers, both fine art and illustration. My fine art career is best defined as that charcoal octopus you can see on my website. I do a lot of really detailed charcoal work, and that takes a long time. And so that's kind of when I decided to divide my career into two parts, both fine art, so I can give myself a break for taking years on projects, and then illustration work for the goal of making more work quicker. And so I am currently enrolled in a bachelor's program at Rocky Mountain College of Art and Design. They are a traditional art school in Colorado, but they've had a sister art program for a long time. And so that's why I chose them when the pandemic hit. They're not new to online. They have a good established online program. Though I will say, if there's any new students listening today, I definitely don't recommend jumping straight into online learning because it's really self-directed. And the only reason I'm able to do it is because I've had years of community college under my belt, and I've taken a lot of art classes before that really gave me the foundational skills that I need to pursue a degree online. And at the same time that I'm pursuing this illustration with a concentration in children's art design, I'm also working on several of my own personal projects. And I've chosen to show you guys my website to show you some of my personal projects. And so I'm just going to go over some of these and some of my process on them. So the first one is this charcoal octopus. This one was originally a drawing to homework assignment at Cuesta that was supposed to take a month to turn in, and I did turn it in, but then I spent another 2 or 3 months finishing it before I ultimately submitted it to the Harold J. Miossi Art Gallery annual student exhibition. And I believe it won second place honorable mention that year as well. But this piece I'm really proud of. It's probably my most finished piece that I have. And moving forward, this is something that I did at Cuesta. It was an etching, and it was my first time doing etching. And it's actually a still life study of a really derpy bobblehead turtle sculpture that I have. And then moving forward, here's another etching I did. This one's more illustrative. Sorry, not an etching. It was a lino cut print. And it just shows kind of more of my illustration style. I definitely gravitate towards surrealistic animals juxtaposed against abstract landscapes, as you might be able to see in some of the paintings behind me. And here's another one I did at Cuesta. This one I actually consider a sketch because I have plans to turn it into a fancier oil painting. This one is called Detective Shark. It's a pastel and charcoal shark that I actually might turn into a children's book. This is a skull from drawing 1 at Cuesta. Just something to note, definitely recommend taking drawing 1 at Cuesta because it taught me so many foundational skills that I use to this day. Even though I love spending time drawing whimsical and imaginary landscapes and animals, I always make time for still life studies because I just haven't found any better way to increase my technical skills than doing observational studies. This one's a really old pastel apple study. This was my first pastel study ever. And this is my more recent one. This one's an acrylic. And moving forward, this was a up close still life where I took existing succulents and shells and turned it into more of a surreal interpretation. Here is an example of the abstract studies that I do. And here's another watercolor. So I'm going to leave it on that one and just finish talking a little bit about my art career and my art goals. I definitely have enjoyed the challenge of fitting a wide variety of mediums into my studio. I don't consider myself a mixed media artist, but I definitely use mixed media. I use a large variety of mediums, mostly graphite, charcoal, pastel, watercolor, gouache, acrylic, sometimes oil, and most recently, I've incorporated digital art techniques. And so it's been a challenge to fit everything into my studio. And so the reason why I chose my studio as my backdrop today is I wanted to show you guys that it is possible to make a tiny studio work. But on that note, I will say that Cuesta College had really great studio spaces, and I definitely miss being able to go into the bronze foundry and make a bronze sculpture, and the painting lab and painting with all my peers. Online studying is great, but there's nothing that beats that in-person experience. But yeah, so right now my career is taking me to really exciting places. I love the program, the illustration program that I'm in, and I love being able to spend time on more personal projects. And I have about 5 books in the work. I have 3 children's books that I am writing and illustrating. One is about a manatee, and another one is about a cactus, and another one is a twist on Romeo and Juliet involving a baby squirrel and a baby blue jay. And then I'm also working on 2 nonfiction books regarding the confusing obstacles of becoming an artist. I'm writing a book that I would have wanted to read straight out of high school. There's too many options on how to become an artist. What do you study? What school do you go to? Do you go to community college or an atelier? Do you go to an art university? There's so many options. And so I'm working on a book to narrow down a lot of my research that I've done. And yeah, I'm working on a lot of different things, including a shop for my illustration work. And so it's kind of all over the place, but it's really exciting. And I'm just honored to have this opportunity to talk about my career in this stage. And if you want to see some of my progress or more of my art, or ask me any questions about how to become an artist, please feel free to message me. You can find my email on my website, or you can message me on Instagram. And I've asked Emma to include my links in the bio. But yeah, that pretty much wraps up the most of my summary. And thank you so much for having me.
Thank you, Isabelle. That was awesome. I'm going to invite Brittany and Alonso to come back. And Isabelle, if you want to go ahead and stop sharing your screen. Got an email. So Isabelle, you can keep your video on because we're going to have a group conversation now. Oh, and you're muted. Zoom fatigue.
Yes, hi.
So for audience members who are here, feel free to throw any questions in the chat or the Q&A. And then Isabelle, if you just want to press stop share to stop sharing your screen.
Oh, I thought you wanted me to stop the screen and you.
Perfect.
Gotcha. My bad.
No problem. So yeah, if any audience members have questions, feel free to throw them in the chat. Otherwise, Brittany and I will sort of guide this time. I suppose I was really intrigued, Isabelle and Alonso, both of you kind of spoke to doing remote school and what that experience has been like for you. I think a lot of students right now, this is what has been the third semester of online learning. And just before we went live with this, Isabelle, you were sharing, about the different strategies that Rocky Mountain has and the Zoom classes. So I don't know, I guess let's talk about sort of pros, like what has been, you mentioned that the self-directed nature has been really helpful, but I don't know if you want to share more, and Alonso, feel free to chime in as well.
Yeah, I mean, Alonso, I don't know if you want to go first, but I could speak a lot about that because I definitely researched a lot of different options before picking Rocky Mountain College of Art and Design, which is RMCAD for short, RMCAD. Takes less time to say. But yeah, the good thing about RMCAD is it's project-based, and they really do a good job dividing the illustration projects into smaller parts, which is something that I kind of touched the surface of in Cuesta, but because it's a bachelor program, we dive deeper into that concept. And I would say that I really love the self-directed aspect, but that's from my own personal experience. I've been very independent, and when I have a vision, I pursue it. And so it's great to have the flexibility of a self-directed school. That's why I chose this school, because there's a lot of art. There's a lot of universities out there that really just want you to do art their way, which is fine. And I could argue so many merits for doing art specifically the way the teacher wants. But there becomes a point where the student might want to be more independent, and I've reached that point. And so it's really great to have that flexibility. And so don't get me wrong, they do tell me what to do, but they give me prompts, and there's so much flexibility from there. And you'd be amazed how much freedom you have when a prompt is limiting, because then your imagination expands it more. And so just one example of that, I've taken still life study classes at RMCAD as well as illustration classes. And so for the still life, the prompt would be do a monochromatic study. So then from there, I got to pick whatever I want. And actually, here's an example. And so I didn't have much monochromatic things. I didn't want to go out and buy a bunch of stuff. So I just found the only blue items I could find in my house, which was a coffee cup, sponges, and a little Christmas ornament, and then blue drapery behind it, which was a scarf. And so here's one example. And it's great to have that flexibility, because even though everyone's doing a monochromatic study, everyone's doing it slightly different. Whereas I think if I were to do this class at Cuesta, it was we had actual things in front of us. And yeah, I'd be drawing the apple from this side and someone else would be drawing the apple from that side, but we'd all be drawing the same apple. And so with this online self-direction, it's really fun to say, how can I make this uniform prompt be unique to me?
Yeah.
And it's a fun challenge that I really recommend for anyone who has a good grip on the foundations already.
Yeah. Alonso, do you have, and you've been, I don't think you mentioned this, but you're at Art Center now in LA, right?
Correct. Yeah.
So awesome.
And
So-
have you been online exclusively?
Yes. This semester they are a lot. I mean, they said this last semester too. One of them was a hybrid class where we show up on campus once every 2 weeks. It is a 4x5 class, so I think that's why they want us there. So maybe the instructor can, really show us in depth how to use the camera.
What's 4x5?
4x5 format.
I gotcha.
Large.
Brittany and I are both like, we don't know photography.
So yeah, it's an old camera, but it takes wonderful portraits. So I don't know if they're gonna keep doing that, but yeah, majority of my classes have been online. I had trouble adjusting. I mean, it definitely was an adjustment for me. I'm a person that likes that structure, likes that environment of being in the classroom, talking to other people. It helps when I'm conceptualizing, bouncing ideas off other people, and just, it also gives me a break from, the intense work that I'm doing or trying to conceive or, create. It gives me a break and just talk to somebody just for a few minutes and then back to work or whatever. So it's been definitely an adjustment, but it's had its benefits, definitely.
Yeah.
What are you studying, Alonso? What's your
Photo and imaging.
Cool. Very cool. Awesome.
I guess Alonso and then Isabelle, if you want to share too, one thing we have been asking alum is about the transfer process and what that was like for you and getting your work together, your application together, and also how you narrowed down your decision about where you wanted to end up. So Alonso, I don't know if you want to speak to that first.
Yeah, I took a portfolio presentation class with Doug Highland through the photo, I think it is, department.
Yeah.
That prepared me so much. I mean, really understanding, the process of how to apply, how to put a portfolio together, how to put a digital portfolio together, and putting that resume together or that CV of, your accomplishments, your classes that you've taken. And then it really even goes farther into depth of like finding what school is right for you, understanding who are the teachers there, who are the instructors, are you gonna, create well with them? Is that a style that you want to mimic or learn from, so it was really, really insightful to get into that class and really get into depths of like what the school offers, what do their labs look like, what are their hours of operations in a sense for the studio, when do you have access, is it a 24-hour campus, is it not? I'm a workaholic when it comes to photo. There had been times where I would, I didn't even have a class, but I'd be in photo lab all day until there was no more classes. I'd get kicked out and I'd go down to, there's a little art computer room. I'd be there until they kicked me out of there. And it's rounding about 5 or 6 at that point. And, I just nose to the grindstone just because I love it. So it's,
Great.
Yeah, I definitely agree about the value of Doug Highland's portfolio class and the value of studio time at Cuesta. Definitely, I think that Alonso and I are both workaholics for our passion, and that helps with the transfer process by simply having more work to show and more accomplishments to put on your CV. Another thing to add is while I was at Cuesta, I participated in 3 of the clubs there. And I don't know if in 2021, all 3 clubs are still active, but I know that it's not too hard to reenact a club. If any of the clubs I'm about to describe aren't going, you can always find an art teacher who's willing to start the club up with you again. And it's kind of a simple process. It's just a lot of paperwork, but it's not intimidating. But anyway, those clubs, there was the art history club, the art studio club, and then a less formal mega critical art club, all of which I was a member or a president of at one time. And that was like really, really huge because I learned a lot of organizational and leadership skills, but also it looks really great on your CV. And we were able to do a lot of cool things through that club. With the art studio club, we worked on a giant scarecrow for a Cambria Scarecrow Art Festival. We did a paper mache mask building workshop for Halloween. In the art history club, I organized field trips to Art After Dark, which, fingers crossed, I hope Art After Dark starts again this year, which, for anyone listening who doesn't know what Art After Dark is, real quick, it's a program in San Luis Obispo where on like the first Friday of the month, a bunch of different shops in downtown San Luis Obispo have gallery openings. And it's a great opportunity to walk downtown and meet new artists, discover new artists. And so through the Art History Club, we would go there and then we'd come back and discuss it. We would meet new friends through the art community. And so all of that, not only is it a great experience, but it's great for your CV. And so just all these little opportunities that you can do through Cuesta or any school you're at really help you have a stronger application. And then just real quick, speaking on the transfer process, it's not fun. I can definitely say I know a lot about transferring credits because I've been to about 6 colleges. And I have 2 art associates at Cuesta. But before that, I went to about five colleges. And so now when I was transferring to RimCAD, I had to get the transcript for every single college. And so that's like $5, $10 for each transcript. And not only do you have to send the school you're applying to each transcript, but like every school you're applying to has to have every transcript. And then on top of that, you need to know the original descriptions of your class. Like, let's say I'm transferring to RimCAD. I had to have a document with all of Cuesta's class descriptions that I was arguing to transfer. So it's nothing you have to do in advance, but it is something that you could do as you're going when you're taking classes, just like copy and paste your class description from your syllabus so that you have it for later. But definitely argue your way to getting as many transfer credits as possible. Mm-hmm. It was easy for me because I had 5 colleges, and so they had to like cut me off from transferring. Usually schools don't let you transfer more than 2 years worth. And then lastly, the other note, transferring is easier if you get an art associate degree. So it was like really messy that I went to so many schools, but it was easier because a lot of times they were like, well, you have an art associate. So they just slapped down a 2-year transfer. Like you don't have to do any of the general studies. So if you're in that type of boat where you have a lot of classes, finishing up an AA makes it easier, I think.
Yeah.
And to piggyback off of what Isabelle said, like transferring as many credits as you can to the school you want to go to is a great idea. You're not spending as much money there, and you're really just cutting through it and hitting aiming for that bachelor's or whatever you're going for. But knowing what school you want to go to, and then from there talking to somebody there and finding out what classes do transfer, I think is critical. I mean, you're talking to befriending and talking to a lot of administratives and just asking questions. It's such a great benefit and makes that transferring process easier in the long run.
Yeah, I think that there's a lot of conversation in the education world at the moment about sort of demystifying some of these bureaucracies and ways that we can do that to create more accessible educational institutions. And I love all the little pro tips that you both have shared. I have a question specifically for Alonso, and that is, I've noticed that you haven't, in your photography practice, you haven't really merged into the commercial world very much, or at least you didn't share anything. It doesn't sound like you shoot weddings, or for someone who's so deeply familiar with it. And I'm just curious as to why, and whether you see that becoming a part of your practice in the future, or whether it's a purely creative pursuit.
Right now it's a pretty creative pursuit, but financials are playing a big part in my world with COVID shutting down. So I will be, expanding that commercial portraits and family portraits and, doing weddings like that more. I have been doing, family portraits for a little bit, but only for close friends. Most of my commercial work is like product advertisement, collaborating with clothing companies as well, and doing commercial work for them in that aspect. But yeah, it's been a purely mostly artistic adventure for me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's really fun when in this series to just hear about how different people have approached their practices. I could keep asking questions, but I want to leave room for Brittany.
Yeah, no, I was, kind of stepping back 2 questions maybe at this point, but both of you really spoke to kind of being on campus outside of class, like typical class time, right? And really taking advantage of the studios. And I think we all know why that's important, really. It does a number of things, but I was curious, like how the Isabelle, this might be a little bit different for you because you're online, but maybe how the different studio cultures that you've been a part of. Alonso, I'm especially interested at Art Center because I know that it is like a workhorse kind of program down there, and yeah, I guess I'm just curious as to how that kind of drive has served you currently, and if there's anything that you're doing currently that is potentially similar, whether you're a part of any clubs or anything like that that's connecting you to spaces, especially now that we're all online.
Alonso, you want to go first?
So being part of the studio spaces was important, and it definitely drove a lot of how I created. And then with the new, COVID restrictions, having to take a different approach of how do I engage with the community? How do I still talk to people? How do I still, have that fire for creativity? And it was difficult for me at first, but it was really reaching out to my, I made it a point when I was at Cuesta during my last several years to make art friends, right?
Yeah.
From different disciplines, from photography to sculpture to art, to painting, and really just, going either into those classes, when they had, studio time, and maybe talk to a friend that I knew in there for a little bit, or, but just doing things like that really, helped in, kind of making that transition from an open world to a COVID world a little bit easier and better for me as an artist, to continue my practice, to continue the methods that I use to, create.
Love that. Isabelle?
Nice. Well, I can't really speak to RimCAD's studio space because it's all online. It's not a hybrid program. And so for my online experience, we have discussion boards, which is not a way to, I don't think that's a great way to stay in touch. I think all online schools do discussion boards, but like everyone turns it in like the night it's due, so nobody really sees everyone's responses, and it's not the best way to communicate. And so I would say if you're online doing discussion boards, try to not be like me and turn in your discussions like a day or two early so that you have time to read and reply to other people's comments. Also, through my online school, almost every week we have a discussion, like a thinking prompt, and then we also have a critique discussion where you submit your progress or your finished work, and you have peers critique, which is great. It's definitely valuable to have critiques, and I learned one thing that I just want to share here about critiques. So I used to think that art critiques were kind of annoying because you get all these unwanted opinions. But I recently, as of this year, have like a more positive look on it. And the good thing about art critiques, even in an online school, is you welcome all of these critiques, and out of all of them, you might get one that like changes your career. And so like, just listen to all the art critiques from your peers, even if you don't agree with it, because every once in a while you get one gem and you're like, yeah, that really fits my style. I think I'm going to do that instead from now on. And so that's one great thing about online schools. You still have that opportunity for critiquing and then staying in touch with your student peers. But a lot of it, you have to take the initiative. Like, you have to reach out and say, like, do you want to be friends? Like, do you have an Instagram? Like, you have to like get out of your shell and like reach out to these people. And so then the other thing that I want to mention that isn't specific to school, but like how to create that art community outside of school. I've definitely been researching that, and there's so many ways to do it online. And I think Instagram is a great way to meet other artists and other small business entrepreneurs. I'm only starting to touch the surface for growing my Instagram, because the thing about growing an Instagram is you just have to post every other day. Like, that's how you grow an Instagram. You just post. And so I just have been putting that off, and I'm starting to do it. But there's a lot of different groups on Instagram, and you find people that you like, and then you like click on their profile, and there's a drop down and you can see more profiles like them. And you just go in this research rabbit hole on Instagram, and you can really find people. I'd say since the pandemic, I've already made like 20 Instagram friends, who most of which are artists themselves in different fields. And so I would say, even for someone who isn't taking a lot of classes in person or classes online, there's a lot of ways to reach out and create communities online. And on that note, if anyone wants to message me on Instagram, I'd love to see more people on there. It's a great way to stay in touch.
Yeah, I love how both of you have been emphasizing this point on community, and how both with your time at Cuesta, and Isabelle, for you in your online presence and networking, and Alonso, how you spoke of making sure you had art friends. I love that model of how community can really sort of shape your practice, and is so important to your practice, both in formal critiques, informal critiques, friends to walk around art after dark with, people to go to gallery shows with. I think that's really, really important. And I'm wondering if either of you kind of want to speak to mentorship and sort of mentors that you found at Cuesta, and whether those were in faculty or peers or whatever, but people who really supported you in your creative journey.
Alonso, you might have more to say on that.
Where do I start? I mean,
Yeah.
I mean, for me, it was really a build, and I kept just building and building. I mean, Doug Highland has been a huge inspiration to me to keep thriving and keep going. I think it was early 2001 when I actually started going to Cuesta for the first time. And there was big chunks of like a year where I would stop, 2 years. I believe there was 2 big 5-year chunks where I just disappeared. And, he said something to me one day that just kind of dragged on for a while. And it said, I was driving truck, big rig at the time. And he's like, well, do you want to drive big rig, or do you want to take photos the rest of your life? and I didn't have an answer for him then, but in the back of my mind, it was just always going. But yeah, that was kind of like the starting off point. And then from there, he convinced me to join the summer residency with Oliver Herring. I was like, what is this guy gonna teach me? He's not a photographer. And I am so glad that I did that, because it gave me insight to how a practicing artist works, conceptualizes, how he goes about creating the final product to say that lands in the museum. And that was just mind-blowing for me of seeing that. And also, being there and helping him with the photo aspect of it, that was something that I was really I knew very well, so I could easily just jump in, let him know, hey, this is how this works, go for it. And just sit back and watching him and eating all of those juicy fruits of knowledge, just helped fertilize for the next step, which was the residency with the Industry of the Ordinary. There, I was able to took what I learned from Oliver Herring and from what I learned from the two gentlemen from Industry of the Ordinary, and apply that in a real in real life, in conceptualizing an installation, which I've never had done before. Most of my art was, painting, it was sketching, it was graffiti, it was, photography. It was never really performative art or anything like that, anything close to that. And to know that I could do it, it was just even a bigger mind-blowing experience, knowing like, oh, like there's more to this that I can create. There's more that I can create. And, I can, if I use these different tools, I can create whatever I want in any medium that I want, because a medium is I think it's a big driving force in, relating to, the viewer, relating to the audience, and getting your message across as well, without, blatantly just hitting them in the face with what you're trying to, convey. So those were huge experiences. Taking sculpture with Margaret, that was another great experience, which was, I can't say enough about it. I'm a person that loves to work with my hands, and once I got into 3D design and sculpture, I was like, wow, like now I can implement tools that I used to use on cars, on welding, and this to create something. It just even more invigorated me to really start thinking of other mediums that I can use, other materials, but also, going into like a third fold, working at the art museum there, even as a student, it was just another like gratifying and insightful experience. I got to learn how a museum works, how things get put together, how artists come in and they start to conceptualize how the space is going to look. And having to work with all the working gears, right, of what's okay, what's not okay, what's gonna be a hazard, but still convey what the artist wants. And that's been a big thing, and that's actually the experience that I learned there I've taken on to working at other museums. I've worked at Bowers in Santa Ana. I have another contract with them coming up in June, I believe.
Awesome.
So yeah,
it's a great museum.
Yeah, and
We're
wonderful.
gonna have to come visit you.
Definitely.
I do.
I mean, yeah. So it's been a wonderful several years at Cuesta, and I gained a lot of friends and a lot of mentors there, and I'm very grateful for everybody from top to bottom, administrative to, instructors, for everything that they've done for that school and for me personally. So thank you.
Thanks, Alonso. Isabelle, do you have anything to add before we wrap up?
Off topic, I just read the chat and I want to say thank you, Stephanie, for complimenting my art. But yeah, definitely a lot of art mentors and art peers at Cuesta. I would say I had a slightly different experience than Alonso because I might be more of an introvert, I'm not sure, but definitely made a lot of art friends at Cuesta and a lot of art peers. And then learning from Emma was like invaluable. I learned so much working at the gallery. And I, just because Alonso talks so much about how you learned about the conceptualization and the planning of the gallery, I want to speak to another angle. I learned a lot about the marketing end and the business end. When I was working as Emma's assistant, I got to manage a lot of the integrated marketing. And so I learned a lot about social media content planning, as well as physical marketing, like through physical flyers and reaching out to local news outlets. And I learned a lot of skills that are going to be useful for my own career, because I will say that it doesn't matter how talented you are, how good your art is, you need to know how to sell it and sell yourself. I mean, lots of people can get a business partner to help with that. But in the beginning, you really do have to know more than just the art making. And so Emma helped a lot with that. And then Doug Highland helped a lot with that through his class. You learn I would say Doug Hyland's class definitely touched it more than other classes. And it's something that I recommend to people study in their time outside of class. Is there's so much more to art than just art making. And definitely utilize the art department and ask, because most of the teachers at Cuesta are artists themselves. And so they're always willing to answer questions, and like it's definitely good to like try to think of questions outside of art making. And you can learn a lot through there, because it's hard to become an artist. There's so many different ways, and all you can do is one step at a time, and the Cuesta art department is there to help you.
Yeah. Well, I think that's a beautiful way to wrap up. And yeah, I think I want to emphasize that there is so much support and for students at Cuesta. And I think, you know, Cuesta is intentional about always thinking about ways to provide more support, and the department, certainly Brittany, is a resource for any students who are on as well. Brittany, any closing words?
I just want to say thank you so much to both of you for sharing your journeys with us today. It's also just so great to see some, you know, super successful students coming out of the program, and just makes me feel good. So thank you so much. I appreciate it. So,
yes, and we'll have to get together, Alonso, next time you're up in SLO. I know you're here from time to time. And Isabelle, you're in SLO, so we should all get together.
Okay, I'd love to join.
Sometime. Thanks so much for sharing today. And yeah, I will see you on the internet. I'll see you on Instagram.
Yeah.
And
definitely.
thanks for everyone listening in. We'll see you next time. I think that they'll be resuming this series in the fall, but I'm not certain. But for anyone listening, do not forget to register for our virtual student show, which will be on the 13th. 1 second. I will find and put the link in the chat. It is on the 13th at 5:30. So we'll be doing our virtual award ceremony. And Isabelle and Alonso, you're welcome to join if you're interested.
Yeah, I love the student show. It's always great to see the best of students work. And then if there's still time to enter, I really recommend that any students listening enter, because it's such a great opportunity to have your work in a gallery. It feels good. It's a great first step to be taking when you're still in community college.
For sure.
Definitely.
For sure. All right. Thanks, everyone. Have a good day.
Thank you.
Everyone.
Bye.
Bye.